Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode in the Max Rebo Music Theory course, for which Max Rebo has little to no actual involvement. In one of our previous lessons on the major scale, we discussed the series of whole steps and half steps that are used to build a major scale. If you haven't seen that video yet, or you just want to review, I'm going to put a link in the top right corner and in the description down below so that you can have a chance to go back and review that for yourself before moving forward, since all of that information is going to make today's lesson make a lot more sense.
A great leap forward often requires first taking 2 steps back.
We mentioned in our major scale lesson that there are 7 notes in a scale before we begin to repeat letter names and have therefore arrived at the octave.
7 levels of factory, 7 rooms per level. 7 tables per room, 7 men, each table.
We also learned that we can create a major scale starting on any note by using the intervals whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now, you can rest assured that every time we use the word major in music for something, there will also be a corresponding minor version of that topic as well. Think of it like there can be no light side of the force without a dark side of the force as well.
Darkness rises and light to meet it.
And so today, I'm going to talk about our first type of minor scale, known as the natural minor scale. There are 2 ways to think about spelling a natural minor scale. The first is to begin with a major scale using that series of intervals from our major scale lesson of a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. For now, I'm just going to start with C major, which uses all of the white keys on the keyboard to create that series of intervals. Now, in order to transform this into a natural minor scale, I simply lower the 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degrees by a half step. When I do this, I now refer to these notes as the lowered 3rd, the lowered 6th, and the lowered 7th. And think of it like a light switch, where the scale degrees are either raised or lowered, but there is no in-between.
Do or do not. There is no try.
So after lowering the 3rd, 6th, and 7th notes in my major scale, I've now created a natural minor scale.
What have you become?
I am what you made me.
And the difference is obvious when we listen to this scale in comparison to the major scale. Now, let's talk a little more about that 7th scale degree. When we spelled our major scale, we referred to that 7th scale degree as the leading tone, since it wants to lead up to the tonic. But now that it's been lowered so that it's a whole step away from the tonic, it no longer wants to lead up the same way. And so, instead of calling it a leading tone, we refer to our lowered 7th as the subtonic, meaning below the tonic. Let's try this approach once more, beginning with another major scale. This time, let's use the A major scale, and so if I use my series of whole steps and half steps to spell an A major scale, I then identify the 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degrees and lower each by a single half step. Now, if we remember back to our C natural minor scale, when we lowered those scale degrees, each one became a flat note in order to preserve that letter in the scale. However, this time when we lower the notes, we see that they instead lose their sharps and instead simply become the natural version of their letter. And I bring this up so nobody mistakes the term lowered with automatically assigning a flat to the note. So now, when we lower 3, 6, and 7 in an A major scale, we get the A natural minor scale. And we can see that the A natural minor scale uses all of the white keys without any accidentals, just like the C major scale. This makes C major and A minor what we refer to as relative major and minor. And while it's the same 7 pitches, the order has made all the difference to the sound and feeling of the scale in music. Meanwhile, A major and A minor would be what we refer to as parallel major and minor. And what exactly does that mean?
A good question. For another time.
We'll talk more about this in a later lesson. For now, just knowing how to transition from a major scale to a natural minor scale is all we really need to focus on. So that's one way to think about or spell the natural minor scale. The other is to simply think about its intervals as well. If we look at the A natural minor scale again, we see that it begins the same way as a major scale, with a whole step from A to B. From there though, it immediately begins to change as we next move by a half step from B to C. Then, from C to D, we move by a whole step, and from D to E, we move by a whole step. So far, we have whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Then from E to F, we move another half step. Then from F to G, we move a whole step, and from G to A, we move a whole step. So our complete list of intervals in a natural minor scale is whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Or if you prefer thinking about it in numbers, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, me personally, I stopped thinking about specific intervals after a major scale because it just starts to become too many intervals. Instead, I think about how we varied the major scale by lowering 3, 6, and 7 to get a natural minor scale. Or I think about the relative major scale, which is something we'll be learning about in the next lesson. And scale degrees will work the same way in a minor scale as they did in our major scales. The first note would be the first scale degree or tonic. Then the next note is 2, or the supertonic. The third scale degree is known as the mediant. The fourth scale degree is known as the subdominant. Then we get to the fifth scale degree and the dominant. And then the sixth scale degree, which is now just a half step above the dominant, is known as our submediant. And finally, our seventh scale degree, which has been lowered, is no longer the leading tone, but instead the subtonic. The natural minor scale is an important part of Star Wars. Because of the lowered seventh, the scale and melodies that use it tend to sound less aggressive, calmer, and oftentimes also more ancient while still being less cheery than the major scales. Because of this, film composers will often use the natural minor scale for the themes of heroes to give them a feeling that doesn't feel perfectly innocent like a Luke Skywalker. Or even Superman. But that also doesn't feel like Palpatine or Vader. The best example in Star Wars is of the Force theme, which is written primarily using the notes of the natural minor scale, giving it a calm and ancient feeling while also being very serious. But Williams returned to the natural minor scale for his final theme for Obi-Wan Kenobi for the Kenobi series, giving the exiled Jedi Master a feeling of sadness while a hero still hid somewhere inside by finally writing him a theme. So you can see just how important the natural minor scale is to music and to Star Wars, and I encourage you to practice this on your own as well to help translate the music you see. My next video will discuss those relationships between parallel major and minor and relative major and minor, and we'll see just how those different keys and scales are fully related. But for now, let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to learn more about the music of a galaxy far, far away. And as always, may the be with you.